Senator Barrasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations. Thanks for coming to visit with me and having a chance to talk about a number of the things, including the things that Senator Lankford was just talking about. So, this is a critically important position in the government. Very few agencies in Washington are as present in the lives of working families as the IRS, for better or for worse. Many people feel like it's for worse. And that's what I hear in Wyoming. They're afraid of the IRS. They're people that are honest people, want to pay their taxes, want to pay what is owed, don't want to have someone come after them if they think they've done right, if they think they've called and they have called and couldn't get an answer, finally get an answer, may have been told something after waiting hours and hours, try to comply. And we talked about this. But restoring the credibility of the agency, I think, is going to be a steep mountain to climb, and it's something that when we visited about, I said, this is critical as part of your job. The policies that have been enacted by President Biden's reckless tax and spending bill really were not going to be helpful in trying to regain the credibility of the American people for the agency. The American people have seen examples of political targeting at the IRS, a weaponization of the tax code. People feel we have an administration that is woke and weaponized against them. We know about the poor customer service, less than 10% of the taxpayer calls getting answered. In the private sector, the level of performance would put someone out of business. But in the federal government, you get more money. The answer is pay more money, increase the spending. Massive backlogs have left desperate families and small businesses waiting on much-needed returns as they fight skyrocketing inflation. Some of these returns that I hear we get calls in around the state of Wyoming, people waiting for over a year for returns of their money. The IRS has been plagued by leaks, highly confidential taxpayer information to news outlets like the one that Senator Lankford just referred to. These are just a number of examples. I think from our discussion, you know that there is plenty of cleaning up to do. And the focus needs to be on improving customer service for hardworking taxpayers. Regrettably, that wasn't the mandate of this ill-conceived tax and spending package. $80 billion in additional funds for the IRS. And as I read it, only $3 billion went to improve taxpayer services. More than $45 billion went to support an army of IRS agents. We saw the ads of what people are looking for in terms of ability to carry weapons. This is a shakedown small business operators and middle-class families to pay for expensive partisan policies. And it just gets very, very bothersome. We read this new report that the IRS has proposed a revenue-producing procedure this week to crack down on the service industry's reporting of tips. Now, people are going to have until May to provide feedback. So we're looking at 87,000 new IRS agents. The promise was that not going to come after anybody that makes less than $400,000, but what's just come out with is a new program aimed at how to better report tips. So we're not doing what the chairman had said, something about, well, this is going after millionaires and billionaires. This is going after waiters and waitresses. That's how I read this. So, I mean, this is the big difference in terms of what I hear from the chairman of the committee and what I see happening and hearing from people in Wyoming. So let's see. Ranking Member Crapo has introduced legislation to protect taxpayers making less than $400,000 from increased audits. The department has said it. You are on record today saying you would not increase audits on Americans making less than $400,000. So would you be supportive of legislation codifying your promise, just adding additional guardrails for taxpayers?
Senator, I appreciate the question. I will share with you that I believe the role of the IRS commissioner is not to opine on whether to support a piece of legislation, only to tell you whether we think at the IRS it's administratable or not. And so my partnership with this committee will not be oriented around what the tax code looks like, more like how do we get the tools we need to, whatever you and your wisdom in this committee and their wisdom enact, how do we implement it effectively?
Well, when we visited and I mentioned the difference of how much money is spent for others, and you said, well, in the wisdom of Congress, I said, well, it wasn't really the wisdom of all of Congress. It was a bill that was passed on party line vote with not a single Republican in the House or Senate voting for it, to do the sort of service type things that you and I agree need to be done for the American people and American taxpayers. Is the $3 billion enough? Is this a appropriation in terms of how the money is divided, in terms of what you might need if you came to us and said, to really hit the taxpayers' needs so people can answer the phones and give people correct information.
Yeah,
Has the money been allocated in a way that you would have done it if you could say, let me divide the money differently?
Yeah, I want to be able to come back to you, Senator. As I said earlier, we've been given a mandate by Congress with several billions of dollars to improve taxpayer service. My commitment is to make sure that that money is spent wisely, that we get the most out of that money so that it benefits taxpayers, all taxpayers. And I will commit my time to making sure that there's transparency, as I've mentioned, into what we can and can't do with the funds that are provided.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time's